So I'd like to hear a little bit about, I guess, the landmarks or historical places that you visited. Who would like to start off first? Reverend Carmen?
Well, the primary trip was along the former Berlin Wall, so we rode our bikes along what used to be the Berlin Wall. So we stopped at significant spots along the wall. I'll let them tell you about which ones they most remember, but the one that was most impressing upon me was a place called the Temple of Reconciliation, and it was just really within feet of where the former Berlin Wall used to be. And it was a temple that was built in a circular shape with artwork that just really emphasized the need for peace and reconciliation. And when you visited inside, the prayer or the request was just that you took time to go inside and pray for things that would lead to reconciliation and peace. And so that was one of the things that was most impressive to me. If they don't say some others, then I'll say.
Okay.
So one place I really remember was the watchtower that we, it was on our first day, and there was a watchtower between, I don't know if it was East Berlin and West Berlin. I know it was, I think it was next to the river, and that's what separated the two, I think. But I just remember that because I remember the guy came out and he had like an America T-shirt on. He had like the states on it, and he was real friendly and everything. And one of the things he said was, "I thank your grandfathers and your great grandfathers for what they did to help us. They like dropped chocolate and food and that kind of stuff." So he's like, "I thank you guys, you and your ancestors for that." And I thought that was really cool. And then I remember just being, like, you could tell very clearly in Berlin where the actual wall was, because there was like two bricks or cobblestones that would make a path, and they were right next to each other. So I thought, like, actually being able to put my foot there and go, back and forth, that was pretty cool, because 20 years ago you couldn't have done that. And I just thought that was really cool. That was prominent throughout all of Berlin, and they kind of want you to remember it and know why this is there, and remember that this was there and the city used to be divided, but now it's one Berlin. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
I definitely enjoyed seeing the former Berlin Wall and all the art and the graffiti that was put on there.
The East Side Gallery.
Right. The wall itself, and also in the East Side Gallery, which I was also about to mention next after this, because it gave me a feeling of what was going on through people's heads during those times back then. How it was just nearly impossible to be able to get past the wall, get over the wall without being threatened or potentially shot. So it would, and we saw that a little bit through the East Side Monument Gallery.
Yeah, gallery.
I'm sorry, gallery. So it was just a nice learning experience with those two monuments and galleries.
Can I say something real quick? Yeah, I just remember the East Side Gallery, and I remember seeing the car that was painting on one portion of the wall. And I remember like seeing that in like one of my old history classes. I remember seeing that in like books, and we saw that in a YouTube video that was shot in like 1980 in the 80s when they were starting to tear down the wall, and they were putting stuff, initially putting paintings on the wall, and I remember standing next to it, and it's like, wow, this was like really a part of history. People were sitting on this the moment that the wall came down. Like that's really cool. Like I never expected to be in that place, and so that's one of that was also one of the cooler moments. That's something I'm definitely gonna remember.
Yeah, as previously mentioned, the East Side Gallery, it was a really great moment. It was really something to see if you were ever in Germany, and just walking down there and seeing all the pieces of artwork, how people decided to express themselves, and what they put on that wall before it could be torn down. And I just took many pictures so I could show it to people show them all the many different artworks, show them what's there, what people put on there.
My most memorable monument was near the temple. There was a memorial that kind of had people's personal stories right when the wall went up, and where we were standing was a house, and basically the house was in the middle of the wall, and there were stories about people running out of their front door to get past the wall, and I thought that was just so crazy that literally people couldn't leave their front doors or they'll be shot because they'll be on the other side of Germany or Berlin. And I also thought it was cool because we went through mostly the entire path. You could see how the demographics changed where the city was split. So being downtown Berlin was a lot different. I think we were at West Berlin at the end of the week. You could just tell like how the both sides of the city developed differently because they were divided. So they had no context. So it was like two different cities developed differently. It was kind of crazy. It was kind of being in Chicago and just going through different neighborhoods.
Wow, that's fascinating. I just wanted to comment on what Joshua said about seeing. You said it was a car that you saw in a history book,
like a Volkswagen or something on there.
And it was okay. So a Volkswagen was painted on the wall, and you saw that in the history book, and then you saw it live.
And I was standing next to it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and you never expected to see something that you saw in a history book in another country, right? So
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
it was just kind of an unreal experience. Like, I wouldn't say I never expected to, but like, it doesn't hit you until the moment that you're actually standing next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was a part of history. This was something I actually saw on YouTube and on TV, and this is like that's just like a little bit mind-boggling. Like, I guess it would be like standing next to the Eiffel Tower, right? You would expect at some point in your life to see it, but when you're actually there, it's just like, wow, this is the actual Eiffel Tower. This is this is everything that I've seen or whatever. Like, it's so just being there and seeing that one particular thing, one I could clearly identify, it was just like, wow, that's crazy. I never it was just a sort of an unreal moment for me.
Okay. And Reverend Carmen?
I just started to think also about two of the churches that we visited. One of them was St. Nicholas. And it was one of our last days, and we actually climbed from the first floor through the roof to where the church bell was, and we got to hear it ring. It was a very hot day, and at the top of it, we got to see the whole city you could go around, and I took video. You got to look out and see like the temples, and you could see some of the rooftops that had actually been damaged by the wars and the World War II, but they were still holding on to those, so that was pretty pretty surreal to me to look at the entire city, in addition to hearing some of our young people say, "You didn't tell us we were going to have to climb this high." That was pretty exciting for me to